And I do recognize that as soon as I'm done, we have lunch too, so I that has not gotten past me. So I've I appreciate everybody being here. Like, we've heard some fantastic presentations this morning. And they all fall right in line with what we've done in Ogden City on both the Ogden and the Weber River. Uh for those that happen to come out to the Ogden River, we'll go really in depth on some of the things that we've done, both on the repairing banks, in-stream features that have worked, maybe some things that we've learned that could be done a little better. Because that's also, part of it too, is learning, taking what you've done and analyzing what you've done right and maybe what needs to be better. But if you'll take a look at this picture right here, this is a picture of what's called the Ogden Business Exchange now. Um, Going back a few years ago, it was the Ogden Stockyards, and so that was a big thing in Ogden, is having the stockyards there, and so we're gonna look at that a little bit more in depth here in just a second. But I when I got asked to, or not asked, or I was put over the Ogden River restoration, I came across this picture, and I know there's, like, this little sub creature I've never seen before named Pogo, and I had to ask somebody who was probably, like, 40 years my senior what exactly Pogo was, and he explained it to me. It was a cartoon character by Walt Kelly, and in 1970, Walt Kelly did this, for Earth Day, and it is, we've met the enemy and the enemy's us, and we have this beautiful forest, trees, but there was a lot of garbage and stuff below that. I am here to tell all of you today that here we are in 2025. The answer is us. We have the ability and to make change that is lasting for not only today, but years into the future. So I want to thank you all for being here. Um, I also like, this is a ASCE Utah report card from a few years ago. Um, It talks about, some items that I think really make a big difference in how we, go forward on infrastructure, and not only all infrastructure, but particularly the infrastructure we're talking about today, from floodplains to stormwater to water resiliency. Um, the first thing you have to do in all the projects that we've talked about is you have to develop and fund plans. And in doing that, you have to make sure that you're able to maintain and enhance the infrastructure that you're dealing with. The second thing you have to do is you have to plan and coordinate. Sometimes it's nice working in your own little box, but we can do so much more together and being on the same page. And that takes time and effort, but together it's like a force multiplier in being able to accomplish the goals that you set for yourself, and being able to rebuild and rebound this infrastructure. The fourth thing is to increase leadership in infrastructure. So I have to ask real quick, is there any politicians in the audience? All right, I lucked out. I am here to tell you, the politicians, they're fantastic in their own way. The difference makers are the boots on the ground. The people that are out dealing with the things, getting eyes on it, thinking through the problems, and being able to sell those ideas, right? And being able to manage upward those ideas to those to help sell these things. These are and I say sell, and sometimes I think you get to a certain point they will sell themselves, but sometimes when I started the Ogden River restoration, I would kind of sit down and put my hands over my face and rub my face, not knowing exactly what to do. Because people, they love the idea and the thought of restoring the river, but the thought was, is it just going to be a big waste of money? And that's a fair statement, but you have to be able to be the one out champion your projects, and so you do have to sell that. And then the last thing is to promote sustainability and resiliency. Now, I love those words. The problem with those words, though, is sustainability and resiliency means something different to me than it does to each of you. So you have to define those. You have to set limits and clearly define to people what you are doing, with sustainability, what you're doing to resilience, because you can't just do everything for all things and make everything perfect. You have to set what limits those are. And then when you clearly define those, that's when you can get people to come on board and speak the same language. So this is the Ogden Business Exchange in 1912. This is the Weber River. It's just past Exchange Road, and you can see kind of what it looked like. Not very. I wouldn't call this very urban back in 1912. You can just start see some of the structures popping up. Here's 1915. Um, you can see the black smoke going up in the background. I don't know if that's from the train. There's a rail yard you can see off to the right-hand side of this, but there's obviously more structures. Looks like there's some pigs and some other things and farm animals right there along the river. But notice how wide open the river is. Like when I came across these pictures, it was astounding to me to see how wide the river was back in the day. Um, Now we go to like 1919, and you can see right there with this picture, they've cut down obviously some of the trees, and they've used the lumber to kind of reinforce the banks because the water's come up, right? And you got this bridge going through, and this was you can see the stockyards starting to form. Now we come to, this is May 5th, 1952. And you can see there's the Swift meatpacking plant over on the right side of the river, and you can see the stock yards, and there's some really cool old cars in the picture as well. But looking at the Weaver River right there, you can't tell how much water is going down that thing. It's over 5,000 cubic feet per second is what was estimated at that time. So the bank there right next to that Swift meatpacking plant is probably over 15 feet to 18 feet deep. They actually stacked sandbags there that I best I can tell was probably almost as tall as me, so almost like 5-6 feet. So above where it was. So there's a lot of water going through there. And this I thought was interesting. So what do you do when there's a lot of water going through and the bridge is going to blow out? Well, you get 4 coal cars full of coal and you put on the bridge. I saw this and I just thought it was absolutely crazy. Now I don't know. Somebody asked me, what do we know? Did the bridge ever blow out? I don't know. The bridge isn't there anymore. I didn't see any pictures of what happened afterwards, but it's kind of interesting to think of what, how things were managed back in the day. So here's a different aerial picture of that site. Again, you can see pretty extensive. So here we are in 1952. I would say, even though it's a stockyard, it's pretty urbanized, right? And the river, if you can see right there, is very much encroached upon than what it was in 1912. It's not even the same. So a couple things to just promote is, again, to plan, to coordinate, and to save. You save the environment. To do that, it takes saving money. It takes a lot of working together. So continuing to proceed, in a piecemeal type fashion in development of infrastructure strategies and plans for our complex urbanizing populace is not practical, nor a reasonable means for dealing with the future. Leaders, and again, we've kind of deputized all of you in this room of being leaders, right? So leaders should organize a comprehensive and coordinated infrastructure planning effort that could bring needed efficiencies, significant savings, investment, and most importantly, added safety. Because when things flood, it can get really, really ugly really fast. So here is a picture of one of the projects we've done on that exact same area. Now the Swift meatpacking plant would be off to the right. It is now gone. But some of the interesting things with this picture is right on the bottom end of the picture is actually a central Weber sewer line that goes kind of right through the middle of the river, and that created some problems all on its own of dealing with debris and other things coming down the river. And so, but we utilize that in thinking out of the box of utilizing that as a wave, and we created some other different waves for these kayak features. And then over on the side, you can see a small little channel that does a couple things. One, it creates a little play area for kids to be able to go in and play in a safe environment. But two, it also is used as a fish ladder to be able to get around these other controls that were put in place. It also, we utilize this to help keep the water channel going in the direction that we need it to go for this bank. Um, Interestingly enough too, the bank with the Swift building is laid back, right? We talked about that a little bit. It creates a lot more capacity when banks are laid back. Shortly after this, we had 2023 runoff hit, and this channel carried over 4,000 cubic feet of water. Now, that didn't come with maybe some little damage because the bank wasn't quite fully grown in, but it held it, right? We didn't have to have stormwater personnel going out in the middle of the night sandbagging and have water going out through the middle of our town. Um, this is actually a picture of again, I think Darren referenced eateries too. I like to eat. This is on V Street Avenue. It's the brewery right there, but in right by where this river is, it says infrastructure investment must be increased to meet Utah's growing needs, but it also should be prioritized and executed according to well-conceived plans that focus on health and goals of the system and the economy. Um, so now I want to switch gears and I want to go to kind of the Ogden River restoration project that we're going to go out and look at. Um, this picture, I think, kind of sums up the way the Ogden River used to look. I mean, we weren't just even throwing our garbage; we were just throwing the whole garbage can in the river. Um, I mean, that's just kind of how it was treated. You can see there's kind of like a weir structure. You can see the kind of through the water right there, just kind of how it kind of kept the mud and it's just flat bottom. There wasn't not a lot going on there through there, but through well-planned efforts, you can change things, right? It is possible. And this is kind of a picture of the Ogden River. Different, right? So the weir structure is kind of gone. What you're looking at is what we call like a cross vein that goes to the river. It does a couple different things. One, that oxygenates the water, right? Creates for a healthier stream environment for a lot of different macroinvertebrates, birds, animals, things like that. But it also channels the water where we want it. The Ogden River goes from, I want to say in 2023, we got up close to 2,000 CFS through this river. In 1983, this exact area on the Ogden River flooded at 1,600 CFS. The water was going out over the banks, running down through town, unchecked. But also in the wintertime, this amount of water goes down to about 5 to 10 CFS. And so to be able to keep fish species and other things alive, they need pockets. And so these cross veins here actually scour out in the right areas that we want so it can create some deeper pools and pockets. Um, the Some of the things that we decided to do on the Ogden River is put in what we called stormwater return areas. And so these are little pockets of area where we knew stormwater was going to be discharged to the river. Now, instead of discharging it directly into the river, we came up and really what these are is we made mini wetlands. But sometimes wetlands, depending on who you talk to and certain politicians, they have a bad connotation. But wetlands are fantastic. And so we created these stormwater return areas so that sediments and things can come in and kind of be trapped and naturally filtrate down to the river without having to just be discharged right to the river. So then it creates pockets. As you can see, we've also made it to where we can get in there with equipment at time to time that we can go in there and clean these out when we have to. In high water, of course, water would get into these areas, but in lower water, kind of during the summertime and in more natural flows of summertime, when you have the thunder bumpers that come in and the rain hits the parking lots and the roads and picks up the greases and the oils and the antifreeze, which might be dripping out. It gives it a chance to be concentrated in this area and let the native vegetation do their thing. Here's a different picture of another one that we put on the project. This actually, behind it, you see a structure, and that is with a canal. And that canal actually gets stormwater discharged to it. And so while the canal's running, this structure, you can put boards in it. So if we have a storm event and water exceeds what the going on in the canal, they'll go over this into the stormwater return area. And you can see this is 3 years after we went through there of how that looked, and it really filled in and looked really nice. Here is another stormwater return area that we put on the river. And again, you can see the pipe, the discharge pipe, planning for future development and being able to allow things to settle out there. And you can see we made a pathway such that we could get equipment. Like if we needed to get a backhoe in there, we could get in there. So today's infrastructure must meet the community's ongoing needs and at the same time protect and improve environmental quality, sustainability, resiliency, and ongoing maintenance must be an integral part of improving our infrastructure, right? So again, sustainability and resilience, but we got to have ongoing maintenance because if you don't maintain it, it's not going to last very long. So this is a picture of the Grant Promenade. This is 2-3 blocks away from the Ogden River. So when we did this, we actually looked to change the way the road works. We de-emphasized motor vehicles here and kind of emphasized, active transportation. But in doing that, we put in some of these landscaped islands. And these landscaped islands, as you can see, have little knockouts in them. And so the intent is that when stormwater hits this, it allows it to go into these landscaped islands. So from left to right here, for where those cars are parked, the road actually slopes in a continuous grade, and it gets over to the right-hand side, and there's these knockouts all along here that allow water to come into these islands and collect there and infiltrate in and hold in there. And we looked at plants through this area to make sure, because obviously we're going to have salt, we're going to have other things that are going to affect plants. So you need the right vegetation in here. But as it goes and fills up, we even made a little knockout. If it filled all the way up, water could go right across the bike path here and go right into a storm drain outlet. Though I've only seen that get close maybe a couple times since we did this. It works really well of infiltrating a lot of water off the roadway. Another thing that we looked at, I liked is even with the bike path, instead of having the storm drain, a normal storm drain grate over the top, which is not great to go over, we actually designed some boxes so that they could be lifted from behind and get in and to maintain. One of my last slides here. Utah's infrastructure is a responsibility of state and local leaders. And again, you've all been deputized to be that, right? To be that local leader. And that leadership is needed to maintain and renew the infrastructure the generations have built before us, right? So we are going to keep that and keep that going. So with that, I am going to end because I think it is time.